everyone, my name is Rebecca Merrill and I manage all things digital at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. In this Cathedral From Home series, I'm calling up my colleagues I work with at the Cathedral to see how they're faring in the pandemic, how their jobs have changed, what they're up to, all of that. So today I am talking with Jen Gowers, who is the Executive Director of ACT at the Cathedral. I just wanted to check in, see how she's doing, and all that good stuff. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Rebecca.
How are you doing and where are you right now? What's going on?
I'm doing pretty well. I feel really grateful to be healthy and strong. I just have the great privilege of having a lot of extra time with my toddler that I wouldn't be getting. So that feels like a pretty great gift. This is Glory B. And my partner's here too. And we're all sharing and making our apartment work for everybody's work and all of her play.
Yeah. I mentioned that you're the executive director of ACT at the Cathedral. Can you tell me a little bit about that role, how you came to it, what it looks like when the Cathedral is open?
Yeah, absolutely. First, Rebecca, how are you doing?
Oh, thank you. I am good. I think like most people, we're 5 weeks in now, so I'm sort of starting to settle into a little bit of a routine, trying to make the most of what feels the most normalcy and what feels like a very not normal time.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've got a rhythm. That's
Yeah,
good stuff.
yeah. Well, trying for it.
Exactly right. So when I'm at the cathedral in person, my role is mostly supporting and connecting families with the beautiful mission of ACT, which is deeply aligned with the mission of the cathedral, but is specific and it's about like supporting and uplifting young people from toddlers to teens through a variety of programs that ACT has offered. For this upcoming year will be its 50th year.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what it looks like now is largely the same, honestly. Our job is to continue supporting and uplifting and encouraging families and make them feel connected to our services. And it's been an innovation challenge to figure out how to do that differently in this new time. But I would say that my role, while it looks a little different, in essence is serving the same mission and purpose.
Mm-hmm. Are there, I know that ACT has moved all of or a lot of things online. You're doing Zoom classes, you're trying to find ways to connect with your kids and their families in different ways. What are some of the ways that you figured out how to do that?
Sure. Well, typically we have these, boisterous toddler classes and this wonderful and warm nursery school that my daughter's going to go to next year, and I'm so excited about. We have a vibrant preschool. We have a robust after-school program, a really lovely summer camp that sort of brings the whole close to life in the summer, and birthday parties and a play space midday that this year was free thanks to West Harlem Development Corporation for families to come and take part in. And we have holiday camp when schools closed. And so we're very in person with our services. So this was a new move, right? Because our job was families were really, I think, up for this challenge and responsive and wonderful to the ways in which our program changed. And so the kinds of things we're doing, we only provide school to preschoolers and nursery schoolers. So it didn't necessarily make sense to have online lessons per se, or in the typical sense, or in the ways that a lot of my colleagues in education are doing, or I'd be doing if we were a K-8, or you want to share? But we did want to support our families in robust ways, and so the first thing we decided to do was personally call our families at home each week, and so everybody receives just a connection call to see, like, how are you doing, what kind of support do you need ideas, do you want ideas for how to structure your day, do you want ideas for how to play in educational ways, are you guys doing okay? I know our teachers have fielded a lot of questions about like feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then really we do something on Zoom. So for our in the morning, it's typically a morning meeting. So they come together and they do their normal supportive, sing their songs and talk about, what day is it and how many days of school, we've been here, and let's name everybody and let's say hello to everybody and let's say goodbye to everybody, and maybe a little lesson, but probably more just an opportunity to connect And I think
Mhm.
families have really appreciated that opportunity to connect. So the
Mhm.
first, thing obviously being connect with their adult, and this being connect with the other children. And for after school, we modified that by doing Zoom clubs, which is a brilliant idea that was not mine. That is just the counselors from after school all come together. So they get every single after school counselor in one space. And then one of them is teaching some kind of a skill or activity. So they're playing Jeopardy or they're doing yoga, but they get the benefit of like the whole after school community being online. That, as far as I understand, is remarkably special and people really enjoying. So I think, and then of course, all of us are available in an office hours style all day long during work hours for any needs that people might have. And I think that like trifecta has really helped people to feel supported. Our parents have been really effusive in how supported they feel. And we're just so grateful because that was our number one goal, is to just figure out how do we keep people encouraged and uplifted during this unique time.
Yeah, it's totally changing the way that you're used to working.
Yes. I mean, the core is the same, but
Yeah,
what we actually do is quite different.
yeah, yeah. So we mentioned you're at home right now. Most of us who work at the cathedral, and including you, who have a very hands-on type of job, don't normally do a lot of work from home. So, what's the space that you have set up? You mentioned you're sharing a home with your toddler, who we've met, and your partner. What's that setup look like?
Opportunity to have a laptop. So sometimes one of us in a room and one of us to be out here. New York apartments, right? There's
Yeah,
the room and then there's the out here. So,
yeah,
so we take one space or the other, and then for one of us can sort of multitask our child, we do. And then fortunately, sometimes we have staggered, or work opportunities. So one of us can just like be with our young child while the other one is doing some work. At this particular time, we both have a call. So she bounces back and forth to me. But that's very real, and you get to see her, and says a lot about what we do at ACT too. So we figured that would be no problem.
yeah, absolutely. Have you found any? I mentioned that even in the fact that my routine is contained to my very small apartment, I have, it's been long enough now that it does feel more normal. Have you found that's the case, or is it every day is just not struggle, but is a new challenge?
Oh no. And first of all, I understand that you're just killing it. And every single call I'm on with anybody, people are like, Rebecca, thank God for Rebecca. So just know that you're like making so many people's life easier, and you're doing
Thank
really
you.
innovative things that are helping move people forward. So good
Thank
work,
you. Thank you.
including this. You're welcome. And it's important that you hear that to your face. And I would say, I think it's a huge get. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a high school principal the other day on the phone, and we were saying we both have toddlers that are essentially the same age. And it's not only a gift to have this time with her, but toddlers have a really sort of rigid routine to their
Mm,
day. And so,
mhm.
I mean, I think that my days are incredibly structured, and there's no real opportunity for me to have sort of like days that feel like days that feel luxurious or days that feel sort of hapless, right? Like neither of those are an
Yeah.
opportunity for me. And so the joys of that, I'm sure, are manifold, but also there's this sort of implicit structure to our days because we
Mhm.
have a near 2-year-old. And so I think that's been a great gift in terms of keeping normalcy.
Yeah, as I was mentioning to you, my niece, who is almost 4, has been FaceTiming me quite often, but it's usually around the same time, and it's like gets to be 11 a.m. and it's time for lunch, and she has to go. It's like a very
Oh,
like.
yeah,
uh,
absolutely. The same over here.
yeah. Is there anything that has surprised you, either good or bad or both, about this transition to being at home most of the time?
Sure. I mean, I think that most of it is positive. I think while fully recognizing the gravitas of what's going on in our city, and we have members of our team that have lost direct family members and friends, some of them in the droves. And so
Mm,
I'm aware that when we get back, and now there's a lot of sort of trauma to process. And I think that we would be remiss not to do more of it when people return. I think there's just going to be a lot to unpack. And I think it's our job as people who work with young people and care about their well-being and their family's well-being to make sure that we make the time and space for that. I don't think it can just sort of be business as usual when we return. I think there's sort of a need to process what has happened to our communities and to our homes and to our families and to our friends in whatever way is appropriate developmentally at all those different ages, because we serve every possible age. I do think that this time has been remarkably lovely in the way that made me appreciate, slow down, grow a little bit more internal than I'd had the chance to be of late, get to do things like paint with my daughter or just take a walk and appreciate it. Some of the things that I hope I'm taking with me from this are things like literally walking meetings. Almost every meeting I have is on Zoom or on the phone. So I've gotten to like 20,000 steps some days, and that is not me. I'm a 10,000 step and a way, look at that, 10,000 steps. But this has been a remarkable shift. And so I think I'll just ask people if they want to walk during the meeting now anyway. Like, clearly we can do that. Like, I think that's what's lovely about this are the things that have been sort of unveiled as practices that we could have been innovating all along, big and small, that will help us moving forward. So I think there are quite a few things that I've at least uncovered that I feel like we can take back with us and would really help us, including if people need to work from home more. So I think that, just knowing that there's a lot of gifts and lessons of this time, that as much as there's frustration and there's grief and there's an overwhelm of sometimes negative emotions for folks during this time that feels very restricted, there's also new freedom, deep internal knowledge, opportunity to, take joy from things that maybe you haven't thought of previously as places where you would take joy. And then just honestly practical things that have been positive about this time that I feel like we can take forward into the summer or fall or whatever's coming next for us in whatever role.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of balance between the two things that you were talking about, like the big grief, sometimes the big, like the large scale, and also sometimes very personal grief, and also like finding positives in it. Like both of those things are happening at the same time, and sometimes reconciling the dissonance between those things is complicated,
Yeah, we talk about that a lot in education, right? That idea of like being able to hold things in tension, that oftentimes things are true at the same time, and so that's all the way down to our toddlers when it's like, they are in 20 seconds later, they're like placated or even delighted, to like teenagers who sometimes have the same kind of swings, and just this idea of like, multiple truths can be true at the same time. You can grow your heart big enough to hold those truths in tension.
Yeah, for sure. So last question I have for you is what I've been asking everybody, whenever it is, but when the cathedral reopens, what is the thing you're most looking forward to?
Well, I think silly things like my Golden Girls coloring book, which I've gotten obsessed with. So that will be something that I'll have to like work in my new days still, as if it was a quarantine day. But I'm thrilled pieces that we might be, I mean, who knows, right? But like, I'm thinking that June or July might be a safe bet for at least some restrictions to be lifted. And it makes me feel super excited because we are optimistically planning as if that's going to be the case for a joyful and boisterous summer camp this summer with the theme of magic, which feels very appropriate because I think it will feel very magical to just be back out and running around on the clothes again. And I think that knowing that that might come right when families need it most gives me a lot of hope and encouragement, and it makes it really fun to plan, and it keeps us all sort of hope that what's going to happen next is that, in June or July, we'll be returning to host a fabulous summer camp on the magical 11 acres of the cathedral.
Yes. I can hear the voices of the children at camp in my mind already.
Me too.
All right, Jen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And I'm glad it's lovely to actually see you. And I'm sure I'll be chatting with you soon.
Thanks for making the space for this. I hope
Oh,
it's
of
part of what
course.
gives
Uh,
people normalcy and uplift.
yeah, of course. See you later.